There, everyone. You know how sometimes life throws you a curveball when you least expect it? Well, that's what happened to this family, the Thompsons. It was a regular Tuesday, just like any other. The sun was shining in Seattle, birds were tweeting, and little Emma Thompson, all of 7 years old, was busy building a pillow fort in the living room. Her parents, John and Mary, were in the kitchen, sipping coffee and making plans for the day. John was going to work. Mary had her yoga class, and Emma was looking forward to her play date with her best friend Lily. It seemed like a perfectly ordinary day, right? Little did they know, their lives were about to change. Around 10:30 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Now, this wasn't unusual. Maybe it was the mailman or a friendly neighbor. But when John opened the door, he was greeted by two serious-looking men in suits, holding out badges. They introduced themselves as Agent Miller and Agent Davis from the FBI. The FBI? John and Mary were stunned. What could the FBI possibly want with them? Now, let me tell you a little bit about the Thompsons. John was a software engineer, a brilliant mind who could fix your computer and write code in his sleep. He was a kind and gentle soul, always willing to lend a helping hand. Mary was a talented artist, her paintings bursting with color and life. She was the heart of their home, always baking cookies and making everyone feel loved. And Emma? Well, she was their everything, a bright, curious little girl who loved to read, dance, and ask a million questions. They were a normal, happy family, living in a beautiful suburb of Seattle. They worked hard, paid their taxes, and always tried to do the right thing. So you can imagine their shock and confusion when the FBI agents showed up at their doorstep. Agent Miller, a tall, imposing man with a no-nonsense demeanor, explained that they were investigating a case of financial fraud. He said that a company called Family First Financial was suspected of running a massive Ponzi scheme, and they believed that John and Mary were somehow involved. John and Mary were completely taken aback. They had never even heard of Family First Financial. They tried to explain this to the agents, but Agent Davis, a sharp and observant woman, pointed out a few discrepancies in their financial records. Apparently, large sums of money had been deposited into their account over the past year, money they claimed they never received. John and Mary were baffled. They knew they hadn't received any mysterious deposits. And then it hit them. John's brother, Robert, had been living with them for the past year. Robert, a smooth-talking charmer who always seemed to have a knack for making money, had offered to help with their finances while he got back on his feet. He had access to their bank accounts and had insisted on handling their investments. John and Mary had trusted Robert completely. He was family, after all. But as the agents explained the details of the Family First financial scam, a horrifying realization began to dawn on them. Robert had used their accounts to launder money, promising them incredible returns that, honestly, were just too good to be true. He had used their trust, their love for family, to draw them into his web of deceit. As the agents dug deeper, the extent of Robert's deception became appallingly clear. He had used their names, their credit cards, even Emma's college fund to funnel money through various shell companies. He had spun a complex web of lies, forging documents and creating fake identities to cover his tracks. The agents explained that Robert had been targeting families like theirs, people who were struggling financially and desperate for a break. He preyed on their vulnerabilities, their hopes for a better future, and their trust in family. The days that followed were a blur of interrogations, legal consultations, and frantic phone calls. John and Mary's world had been turned upside down. Their faith in their family, in their own judgment, had been shattered. They were facing charges of conspiracy and money laundering, charges that could land them in jail and tear their family apart. The stress and uncertainty took a toll on their relationship. John blamed Mary for trusting Robert, for not being more careful with their finances. Mary, in turn, accused John of being blinded by his loyalty to his brother. Their once happy home was filled with tension and resentment. Emma, too young to understand the complexities of the situation, sensed the shift in her parents' demeanor. She became withdrawn and quiet, her cheerful laughter replaced by a worried frown. The sparkle in her eyes seemed to have dimmed, replaced by a look of confusion and fear. The investigation dragged on for weeks, each day bringing new revelations about Robert's elaborate scheme. The authorities were building a strong case against him, but he was still nowhere to be found. He had vanished, leaving John and Mary to deal with the wreckage he had created. One evening, while John was going through a box of Robert's belongings, hoping to find something, anything, that could help their case, he stumbled upon an old photograph. It was a picture of Robert as a young boy, standing next to their grandfather. But something about the photo wasn't right. John stared at the picture, his brow furrowed in thought. Then his eyes widened in realization. He grabbed another photo album, frantically flipping through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Another picture of Robert and their grandfather, taken a few years later. John placed the two photos side by side, his hand trembling. The boy in the photos, the boy he had grown up believing was his brother, wasn't Robert. It was someone else entirely. It turned out that Robert wasn't John's brother, after all. He was an imposter, a con artist who had been using their family's identity for years. He had inserted himself into their lives, gaining their trust, and then betraying them in the most devastating way possible. The revelation of Robert's true identity changed everything. The charges against John and Mary were dropped, their names cleared. The real Robert, it turned out, had been estranged from the family for years, living a quiet life under a different name. He was located by the authorities, and while he was shocked and saddened by the news of the imposter's actions, he was relieved that John and Mary had been cleared of any wrongdoing. In the end, the Thompson story wasn't just a tale of deception and betrayal, but also one of redemption and unexpected reunions. The ordeal, though painful, had brought them closer together as a family. They had learned the importance of trust, but also the power of forgiveness. And as for Emma, she still built her pillow forts, her laughter echoing through their home, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And you know what? That's what I love about stories like this. Even in the darkest of times, there's always hope, always a chance for a happy ending. That's all for today, folks. Remember, family is everything.
Disclaimer: the crime stories shared on this channel are fictional and created purely for entertainment purposes. Viewer discretion is advised, as the themes may still include sensitive or suspenseful content. Watch as I bring you thrilling tales well. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an upload.